All right, we are live. What's up, everybody? It is March 6th, Thursday evening, and we have a very special guest coming back for a second year, the college football professor. Great guest from us from last year, and here to talk all things college football, coaches, the coaching carousel, coaching hires, all the new coaches that we got. Adam McClintock. Adam, thank you
Hey
for joining the
guys,
show.
what's going on?
Pumped to have you on. First, we're gonna do a quick introduction, talking a little bit about. I think I don't know if we ended up sending you any, but we got Pipeline Jerky as the number one sponsor. We're continuing to push our NIL jerky product, pipeline-jerky.com, as well as the huskguysstore.com. Go to huskguysstore.com. We got cool merch. We got these hats. We got cool shirts. All sorts of new designs coming out this year. And we actually have a upcoming. We're in process of scheduling with the Pipeline plus Husk Guys an upcoming dinner with Omaha Steaks. That'll hopefully land in the next month or so, depending on when the players decide to respond. But they're big shots now. They make a lot of money, so we're working through this stuff now. But with that, Adam, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Would love for you to reintroduce yourself back to our audience. Tell us a little bit about Matrix Analytical and why we think you're one of the best follows. But I would love to hear it directly from you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So Matrix Analytical, basically what we do is we're not a search firm, but what we do is athletic directors will get a hold of us, or head coaches will get a hold of us with when they're having problem staffing. So, for example, an athletic director may come to us when he's looking for a head coach. He may have an idea of 4 or 5 guys that he likes. We tier those guys for him, tell him which guys to stay away from, and we'll add a couple guys who we think would be good for his program. On the head coaching side, head coaches will get a hold of us. Say somebody needs a wide receivers coach. Okay. Let's say Auburn needs a wide receivers coach, for example. Okay. Head coach Auburn will get a hold of us and say, hey, I really want a wide receivers coach. Here's 3 guys I like. Toss me a few of who you guys think would be a great fit at Auburn. I would like him to be a strong recruit in the Southeast, so forth and so forth. We will tier the ones that he gave us, and then we will also add in a few of our own for him as well. We mitigate hiring risk. We don't want to see those big buyouts, and especially in this day of NIL where so much money needs to be going towards that. We hate to see all that money wasted on a bad coaching hire that they have to get rid of. So that's kind of what we're into is just risk mitigation.
Totally. So I'd love to start there at the macro level, and it's always just good to talk college football. I mean, the offseason is it's chaos, it's mayhem, and it really has been this year for Nebraska, where we've hired. I'm like running through this list. What is it? 10 new coaches. I mean, it's almost entire staff turnover for Coach Rhule in his 3rd season. But we're so in the weeds in Nebraska, just focusing on all of these new hires, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Is it common across college football? Is everybody having this level of turnover consistently, constantly in this new age? Is it unique to Nebraska? Like, I guess, what are you seeing as far as the overall turnover across the country?
Maybe not to the level that we saw in Nebraska this year, but it's very rare these days to have a coaching staff, the entire coaching staff stay together for multiple years. Even just multiple years, 1 or 2 years. There's always some kind of turnover, either guys jumping to the NFL or guys, moving laterally for whatever reason. It's a high rate of churn. Now in Nebraska, this wasn't necessarily this was a little bit abnormal for a team in the offseason, and you can maybe credit that a little bit to just Coach Rhule and the staff adjusting to what their vision is and how they want to go forward with things. The new era of college football.
Is it money that's driving it? I mean, is it just because the offensive coordinators are making $1 million themselves? And I mean, Dan Lanning just got an $11 million contract. Is it because there's so much money flowing into it that all the coaches are also trying to get their money in addition to the players?
Well, yeah, a little bit of that, but there's also guys like Dana Holgorsen, right? Great offensive mind. Typically in the past we wouldn't see those guys who have been. He was a fairly successful head coach himself. We don't. In the past, you don't typically see those guys come back to being a coordinator and be happy with it, right?
Yeah.
Today's day and age, guys like Holgorsen who just want to coach ball. He doesn't want to deal with the NIL. He doesn't want to deal with all the stuff in the periphery. He just wants to coach football, right? we're seeing a lot more of that, a lot more of guys who were, good head coaches going back to being coordinators and being very content. There's a guy in Norman right now who might wish he was still doing coordinating job as being a head coach. So
I was gonna say there's a lot of those. Chip Kelly, I mean Venables, like a lot of these guys are some are stepping up, some are stepping down. It's interesting to watch them where they settle and where they stay, but they're all of them are like 1 year guys. I think that to me has been interesting to watch. Hanging on to a guy like even like Tony White came in here, and the first day he showed up, we're like, we're gonna have this guy for 1 year. I'm like, what? That seems silly. Yeah. And then we got him for 2, and everybody was pumped, and it was a miracle we kept him. But yeah, it just seems like completely frenetic and constantly frenetic. Where even like Frost, for all of his freneticism, like he kept some of those guys around for a few years. It seems like this is like a complete entire turnover of the entire offensive and defensive staff, all the way down to special teams. But yeah, it's not it does seem to be across like a lot of college football. I mean, these guys are turnover crazy.
Is some of that, Adam? Is it like, let's say mid-season this last year, does anyone come to you guys in season and say, let's get the ball rolling here? Or do they kind of say, maybe let's get some grades? Like, we don't think this is going well for Satterfield, for example.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, give it to us straight, or like, or is this all just like the second the season ends, like you're getting bombarded?
Well, we've been doing this for about 10 years now, and it used to be we would start getting contacts about mid-November. Okay, it's kind of beginning of November, mid-November. The last 3 or 4 years, it's been the beginning of October. Is when people start reaching out.
They just punt. They punt in October.
Yeah,
shut it down.
That's not even the midway point.
That's not even. They haven't even made to the conference games.
Yeah, you don't even know if you're going to make a bowl. You're just like, it's done. This guy stinks.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where it's getting to the point where there's so much money involved. As that number goes up, the patience goes down.
Yeah.
So you better deliver. You better deliver now. And guys like Signetti who turned Indiana around so quickly do not help that.
Oh my gosh, I know. They beat the heck out of us, and it was just like, what are we doing? Like, we gotta have patience with Rhule. I'm like, this guy's at Indiana. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but that was a little bit of a different situation. He brought an entirely new team from James Madison, and that was I don't care. I know it's James Madison. Those are ready-made players. Those were 4th, 5th year senior players. They were fine.
Do you think they'll be good? Do you think Indiana will be good this year?
I think they'll start to regress a little bit back to the mean.
Yeah.
They lost some guys, but you know what? We'll see how he recruits. We'll see how he's able to maybe supplement in the portal and get those high school classes started that he typically does. But Signetti is a good coach. He's going to be a thorn in people's sides for a while, I think.
Arya, have you read the book The Price yet by Armin Katayan? I keep telling Andrew.
No, I have not.
You got to read it. It just came out. It's a little bit of a weird read because it came out like a month ago, and it's basically about NIL and how that has dramatically changed college football. So some of it's weird because I'm like, this just happened, 30 days ago, and I'm reading it in a book. So you're like, it's like, are you quoting things that happened in December? Like this just happened. But one of the more interesting things around the coaching hires around, he talks a ton about Jimmy Sexton as the power agent, power broker who has, I think they said he has like 80% of the SEC and like 50 to 60% of the Big Ten coaches. And he just plays them all off each other. And he takes those phone calls, like you're saying, in like October, and will be like, hey, like everybody's coming after Hugh Freeze. And he'll call up like every coach and every like athletic director and play them off each other, which is why these guys are all getting so much money. Like he's got Dan Lanning up in Oregon, and he probably was like, hey, Oregon, it's so crazy. The athletic director of Florida State just called me and they want Dan Lanning and he wants 10 million. Like, do you have 11? And they're like, well, I have 11. Who, and then he's like picking up the other phone, like, hey guy, like, so this guy's like playing basically all the agents off each other. And he has, every single major head coach. So he's one of the guys that's driving this price to astronomical heights. I mean, it's $11 million for Lanning. It's crazy. These guys are making $1 million a game.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane. And it's not going anywhere. It just isn't. I mean, it's just going to keep going up and until something gives. But I don't think we've seen the ceiling yet. That's for sure.
Where do you think the ceiling hits? I mean, is it like 50? These guys gonna make like $100 million a year? Like, what's?
It just, when it starts to get to a point where you're having to rob Peter to pay Paul for, I guess for a good analogy, you're robbing your NIL situation to pay your coaches. I think that's when you're going to start to see the limit. So we'll see.
All right. Well, let's talk, Andrew. Let's get into some Husker stuff. I love it. Thank you for the macro talk. It's helpful for me to just I have so many thoughts going through my head. I'm like, what is going on in football? And it's like hard to pay attention to it all. But all that really matters is that we have upgraded at every position.
Forever.
And it might, and these guys are going to stick around because we are going to go from 7-6 to, I don't know, 8-5.
However many games they've decided on is the number of wins. Yeah, I mean, tons of turnover in this last. So the thing that stands out the most, first of all, is just we started compiling a list, and I'm like, this is like every single coach other than a few. Got to be hard for the team, but give us first of all, overall, your just general sense of did Nebraska do well overall? Did we stay about net neutral, or do you think we possibly downgraded at some positions?
Well, and let's be honest here for a second. The two sides of the ball changed for different reasons.
Fair.
The defensive guys left for different opportunities, and the offensive guys were let go. So I mean that's two different sides of the coin there. But getting into that, comparing the 2024 and 2025 staffs, the offensive staff obviously has taken a step forward. From our numbers, as far as efficiency goes, they're up by 9.3%. It's 9.3% better on the offensive side.
Okay,
than it was last year.
That's like 6 wins.
That's
man. Let's go.
10%. It's amazing.
Give me an idea of I know you've got a lot of proprietary algorithms in there, but how do we get to that number? Because you're pulling new parts from everywhere. So how do we compile that number just for the offense?
I don't think it matters. I think the fact that it's 10% better,
it's a huge number.
So what we do is we take the individual grade of every individual career grade of every guy on the offensive staff. Okay. We have it weighted, because your offensive line coach is obviously more important than maybe your tight ends coach, right? Okay. So we have it weighted in a certain way to offset that. Okay. We average that out per coach on the offensive side, and that's your offensive staff grade number. Okay. That number is like I said, 9.3% higher than it was last year. That's good. Okay. On the defensive side, we dropped slightly by 2.7%. Okay. A lot of that is, we don't have any data on Braden as the defensive line coach. Right. We don't have, because he's NFL. We don't. Those two things don't correlate with us. Now, if he came up from FCS, we have numbers for that, because that's more like FBS than the gap between the FBS and NFL is so great, and the two games are so different that we don't allow those numbers to mix. So we just those guys are just clean slates. We don't know. We have no opinion either way about Brad. Tony White was a very good defensive coordinator. He's going to be felt. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And you have let's see, Butler, or not Butler, but Williams, who's our new secondaries coach. Him and Evan, Evan and Cooper, who coming into 2024. All right. Him and Evan Cooper are about a wash. Okay. Now he is slightly better, according to our numbers, than Butler was as a secondary coach, which is good. Okay. But you have Terrence Knighton, who was a really, really good defensive line coach. That was one that we really wanted to keep and couldn't do it. So he was great rated really high in our system. So you lose him and you bring in a guy who has a clean slate. So that's kind of the difference you're seeing there.
Yeah,
Bill Simpson is another guy who we don't have any information on. He's never actually held a position coach job.
Yeah.
So that's another guy who's a clean slate and a wash. But you bring in Mike Eckler, who is a much better special teams coach than Foley.
I mean, did we score like 100% efficiency increase on special teams?
Well, no. See, the thing is,
did we go from 0 to 100?
Well, the thing is the strange thing is Foley over his career wasn't that bad. We can't really figure out what happened at Nebraska. He got
agree to disagree.
Yeah. his numbers were. I mean, he was a 67.2 was his rating as a special teams coach. Okay. Average is 61. All right. Okay. So he was above average.
Wow.
Mike Eckler is Mike Eckler is a 78.9.
Oh my God.
Much better. He's much better. But I want to stress that Ed Foley was not the scapegoat, the people. I mean, he wasn't terrible coming in. So there was something that happened here that made his numbers that bad. So
interesting.
We do that to coaches, though. There's been a few of those that have been fantastic before getting here and have left with their tail between their legs,
burning in flames.
Remember
Bob Diaco? Good Lord. The guy won the Broyles Award, came here and was the worst.
Yeah. That was a lot of issues on that one.
All right, so let's dive into some of the just the individual hires. I mean, the first one that I think you have to start with is Holgorsen. Came in and made his presence known. He kind of had an up and down year, really overall, like as the coordinator, but just obviously a small sample size. But historically, incredibly good. Pretty much everywhere that he's been. West Virginia as head coach, Houston as head coach, and then Oklahoma State. I mean, he was only there 1 year, and they were top 3 in the country in passing. And so the guy can coach, and I think it's awesome to have him as only coaching offense. But talk to me about, like, is most of our offensive efficiency increase, is that highly attributable to just Holgorsen versus Satterfield, or what are we looking at there?
Well, no, Schwartz, the wide receivers coach, is a big improvement over McGuire, who was there before. McGuire, when he left, like I said, he didn't have a full grade because we grade guys. We consider their grade to be solid and full after 4 complete years.
He's like 22.
Yeah. So McGuire was halfway there. He has 2 years in the system, but he was not trending in the right way. So he was sitting at about a 41 was his rating. Okay. Schwartz is a 72.5.
Wow, really?
So he's very good. Yeah, Schwartz is a very good wide receivers coach. That we were very.
And what would average be for wide receivers coaches?
Average wide receivers coaches is like a 59.
Okay.
So,
what was that? What was Mickey Joseph, like a 95?
Yeah, Mickey Joseph, I think, was an 87.
Woo! I mean, that guy can recruit.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, you go back and you look at his cupboard of wide receivers he's been around. It's silly. It really is.
Well, they all turned out pretty good.
Is our average weighted down negatively because we still have Marcus Satterfield and Lincoln? Like, does it like just weigh the whole thing down? They're just like, it's just a talent drain.
It's like an anchor. Just an anchor being attached.
He's at tight ends coach now.
He should be equipment manager. He should be just like, just go stand over there, Marcus. Thank you for your time. Just give the keys to Dana, please. Thank you.
I think Holgorsen is going to have pretty much whatever he wants to do. It's his show. It's Holgorsen's show. And if you've listened to the guy talk in press conferences, it's he doesn't mince words typically. So he's
okay. Holgorsen definitely above average. Schwartz definitely above average. How about Raiola? Because he's one that we hadn't hired, but we've kept. But people, there seems to obviously be a lot of mixed opinions on him as well. And then he kind of ties into Barthel, who's, running backs, like, how much of it is the running backs, how much of it is the O-line. So where we would be at, I guess, combining those two, O-line and running backs.
So actually, Raiola, his offensive lines have improved every single year he's been there. So his first year, his first year in 2022, and we have a yearly rating, right? Yes, that's right. Get that pipeline jerky out there.
Fine.
He's improved the offensive line efficiency from 19% in 2022, which isn't very good.
No.
He's all the way up to it's actually a respectable 53%. So he's incrementally increased every year. I like that he's still on the staff. I think he's training the right way. I think that especially now that he's with Holgerson, somebody who's got a clear direction. I don't think Raiola has been with an offensive coordinator who knows exactly what he wants to do yet. This is the first time this year that he's going to have a guy he knows that has a plan and knows exactly what he wants to do. So I like keeping him there. I like keeping Raiola there. He's not the problem, I don't think. I even like, I know people get frustrated with Barthel a little bit. I actually like Barthel as well. I think he's fine. He was really, really good at Connecticut. He had a kind of tough year in 2023, but that whole offense was just rough in 2023 and 23. He showed improvement from 23 to 24.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we like to see is him starting to turn around. His career grade is 64. Okay, average for a running back coach is 60. So he's still an above average guy.
Okay.
You don't typically want to fire those guys without cause. I mean, and you did see the running backs improve last year throughout the year. Especially after Dana came in and things kind of got more focused. So
dynamic for sure.
Well, I think your point on Raiola is one that this is what I continue to struggle with, both like emotionally as well as the coaching wise, is he's really the only one that's been able to develop and have that upward trajectory because he's been here for 3-4 years. And so he's been able to coach Prohaska throughout the entire course of the time that he's been here, and guys like Ben Hart. Other than that, that's right. This whole world where like you just get a new coach and coordinator every year, it'd be so hard to develop as a player when you transfer every year and your coach transfers every year and everybody leaves every year, that like, I feel like it's even going to make your system harder because then you're just like, switch schools, brand new coaches, brand new players. That, I don't know, it's more anecdotal. I'm like, can we just stay at school for like 2 to 3 years, see if it works?
Yeah, no, and you had all the injuries that Raiola's units has had since he's been there too. I mean, that whole unit has been riddled with injuries the last 2 or 3 years. So he did it. I mean, when Gunnar Katula can step in as a true freshman at left tackle in the Big Ten and you don't notice him, that's good.
Yeah, that was impressive.
So,
he's got some decent pieces coming in to work with as well in the transfer portal with Elijah and Spindell. So, I mean, we'll see how he can remake it. So what I'm hearing overall on the offense is we've got the best coordinator alive. We've got a vast improvement in wide receivers, which honestly, that might have been the biggest weakness, especially their blocking. And then quarterbacks, we've got a 5-star QB with a solid quarterbacks coach. And then it sounds like our running backs coach and our O-line coach, you trust them, at least for now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I like those grades. All right, let's move to defense here. So I'm going to throw Phil Snow in there because so he's been with Rhule kind of all over the place. He's historically been defensive side of the ball. He's not really going to be too involved in recruiting. He thought it was a good opportunity for himself, basically, because he just gets to coach. It's it's kind of a common theme in this day and age. But what do you think about him coming back to kind of reunite with Rhule, maybe in like a little bit more of a tight-knit way? Sounds like he's getting the title of associate head coach, which is assistant to the regional manager type of position. Is what I'm gathering.
Yeah. Well, it's tough for us to assign anything to Phil Snow because he's not over a specific group. He's going to kind of float around the entire defense. Yet he's not going to call plays on defensive game day. So we don't really have, there's not really a solid way for us to be able to grade him and tell you what.
Yeah. Do you know if, like, say he was the D coordinator, how he would hypothetically rank?
Yeah. Give me just 1 second. I will look it up here.
He's diving in the data bank. I love it.
I will dive it in right now. Let's see here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's no problem.
No, it's. I tell you what, he's been around a long time. He's seen a lot of football. He's been with Matt for a long time. As
37 years of coaching experience, 8 in the NFL.
Exactly. So he's going to be able to bring. There's not going to be very many things he hasn't seen or may not have an answer for. So let me see here.
Yeah, his background is impressive. I mean, and even with Rhule, Baylor had a solid opportunistic defense that was 3rd in interceptions, 8th in sacks per game, 5th in turnover margin. Reached the Big 12 championship game in 2019. Temple, they were 3rd nationally in total defense one year, 11th in scoring. They won the AAC championship together. I mean, they've been together. Things have seemed to click on the defensive side of the ball when he was around, but
exactly,
not sure how he stacks up.
We have his grade at 68.2.
Love that. Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, average for a defensive coordinator is 57.
God,
so and see you look at the places he's put a score up like that, and he's been at Eastern Michigan, Temple, and Baylor. That's his college experience.
So not historically dominant defensive programs either.
Oh, that's pretty impressive when you can put up that high of score at places like that. So
what do you think about like if Addison Williams has called some plays, Phil Snow has called some plays, John Butler has called some defensive plays.
Yeah,
I think there's one more that's been a former defensive coordinator as well. Like, is there anything, like, if you're going through the hiring process, is there anything that you're like, okay, this is too many cooks in the kitchen, like this, like just put this guy, don't even think about it, because they're all going to just be calling different plays?
Now there is such thing as too many dominant personalities on a coaching staff. I mean, you can't have that many leaders and not enough worker bees that underneath to actually push the vision out, right? So that is something I'm really interested in watching this year. And like you said, you have Addison Williams, who was a defensive coordinator. You have Phil Snow floating around. You have John Butler, and Rob Dvorak is going to be a defensive coordinator someday. So yeah, I mean, you have a lot of guys who know a lot of defense on that side of the ball. We'll see how well they're able to mold their ideas together and mold that thoughts on how that secondary should play along with the front seven. That's the biggest thing. I think we saw some of the miscommunication between the back end and the front seven this year at times, and I think that was more to blame for some of the big busts we saw than the actual talent on the field. But like I said, that's something they're going to have to rein in, and we'll see how they're able to do that. But it can be done, but it's going to be tricky. But Matt Rhule, he's the type of leader I think who could step in the room and say, okay, this is where we're going. You guys get us there. This is the overall vision. This is what I want. You guys are smart. Get in the room and figure it out. I think he's the guy for that.
Okay. Running through those position groups and the overall defensive coaching staff. So I guess let's start off with Butler. What do you make of the Butler hire to full-time coordinator? And I guess to preface that, this felt like it was just gonna happen the second that Butler got hired. But do you have like the same impression? And did we like the hire?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have enough data on him. He's only coached 1 year, the defensive coordinator in college, and I was at 1 year at Penn State. That's kind of a tough year to grade them on because they were at like 64 scholarships or something like that, something silly. So we don't really have a solid grade on him. After 1 year, he's sitting at about a 63, which I like I said before, 59 for a defensive coordinator is average. So he's just above average. He's not where we had Tony White, but like I said, we just don't have a lot of information on him to know what he's going to be like as an actual play caller in college these days. I liked what I saw in the bowl game. The bowl game was great. So if that's what it's going to be like, then give me more of that. So I'm in as much wait and see mode as everybody else is on that one.
Love it. Moving into, we mentioned Addison Williams. So he'd been a former play caller. Had a couple up and down seasons. 2023 was kind of his highlight. His defense. They led the Big 12 conference in fewest passing yards allowed per game, and he was secondary coach notably as well. So what do we make of Addison Williams and in that hire?
Yeah, he's basically if who got let go now? Evan Cooper. Yeah, if Evan Cooper would have stayed on last year, through the season, he's basically him and Addison Williams are a good comparison. Okay, they're very, very similar coaches in our grading system. So that's kind of who you're looking at there. I don't know about his ability to eye talent the way Evan did, but Addison Williams, he's about the same. He's let me see what his grade is. 63.7 is his grade. Okay, average guy once again is 60 for a secondary coach.
Bang.
So he's above average. He's we'll see if he's able to jump in that room. There's a lot of bodies in that room. There's a lot of clay for him to work with. So we'll see what he's able to get done with it. But I do like that hire. I'm anxious to see how he is able to make that room go.
Okay. How much of your grading and algorithm, I guess, like how much of it does factor in recruiting? Because he's actually known as a pretty solid recruiter, especially in the Southeast. He's ties in Florida and stuff now. He was the lead recruiter on 3 top 40 safeties to come to UCF within the last 2 years before coming here. So, I mean, how much of that impacts any of these scores?
Not really, nothing at all. Honestly, we
all performance.
Yeah, performance.
Yeah.
We that's great if you can get the guys in who have lots of stars next to their names, but it doesn't really mean anything to us if they don't perform once they get there.
Yeah.
So it has very little to do with our algorithm and how it actually calculates the score.
Love it. God, this is awesome. I love nerding out about this stuff. It's just great to talk to someone so knowledgeable. Truly are the CFB professor. Phil Simpson is up next. Yeah. So he's kind of had a little back and forth with Nebraska, but he's taken over at the outside linebacker role. You mentioned Dvoracek. I mean, he's been doing fantastic. Simpson seems to be a nice compliment, but where are we at with Simpson hire?
Blank slate. He's never been a position coach in college. So I actually really, really like that hire because just being a Nebraska fan, I know what he did in the recruiting department when he was here. Mm-hmm. That's a good addition. That's going to keep our pipeline. Him and Addison Williams together on the same staff. That's going to keep a lot of our options in the Southeast open quite a bit. So I was, one of the other programs we help is Miami, and he went down there, and I'm glad to see him come back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he was a coach in Florida for a while. In high school ranks. He's tied in all over the place down there. I mean, God, if any Florida coach came wanting to poach him or Florida State or Miami, whatever, it'd be an enticing offer for him, I'm sure.
It would be, it would be. Well, I'm happy he's here now, though. So that was a good one. Like I said, we don't have any performance data on him. From what I hear, just from people who have been at practice and seen practice and know him well, they seem to be pretty excited about the hire as well. So just on the fan side of things, that's what I'm leaning on. But on the numbers side, I don't have an opinion either way on it.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. I mean, stop me if I'm wrong. Did we make any bad hires?
No.
Or neutral, I guess. We've got a couple neutrals.
Neutral on a few guys. I'm still neutral on Butler as a DC.
Okay.
Still neutral on Braden as a defensive line coach, and neutral on Simpson as an ends coach. So those guys, like I said, I don't have enough information to really lean one way or the other. I just looking on paper, I do really like the staff overall. Just the entire staff itself, we saw a 5% increase, so that's good. Rhule did a good job of Coach Rhule did a really good job of replacing who he had to replace and bringing in guys who, if they can mesh, I think will raise the program from what it was last year. So
a 5% increase on 7 wins is 7.35 wins. That almost gets us to 8.
Hey,
Someone's got to move that needle.
last year I had
Hey.
them win 8. So if last year's team was an 8-win team, then maybe we'll 8. That's 8 points.
Then maybe it's 9. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, and you add in like all of a sudden we can like punt and our extra points don't get blocked and returned for touchdowns. Then who knows? Were you surprised? Tony White took a lateral move to be a coordinator again and did not get a head coaching job.
I was a little surprised that he took, especially that's not necessarily a stable situation down there right now. Anyway,
Right.
they're pretty heated with him down there. Crashing off the season the way he did. Well, we'll see. That I would have been least surprised if he would have taken the USC defensive coordinator job. I know he was really close, probably doing that. But UCLA just didn't have the money. They didn't have the money to compete with what he wanted to be able to compete with. But we'll see. I know he probably wants to be a head coach someday. I think he's going to get his opportunity soon. And another way to look at this is Florida State's defense. You can't go anywhere but up from last year.
Yeah.
God, what a disaster.
So if he can get those guys to play, he can maybe ricochet that off into another head coaching job in the ACC or somewhere like that. So,
yeah, I mean it's also it's another one of those rental situations too. It's like he's going to come in there and be a stopgap for Florida State, and then he may only be there for one season.
Yeah,
you mentioned money too. Like how does the fair market valuation? I know Matrix Analytical. Everybody should look up Matrix Analytical online, and you guys are on Twitter and everywhere. But I know you guys do a little bit of fair market valuation and stuff of coaches and trying to parse this out and who's in what tier. But like money wise, is there any coordinator rates have gone up so much? Like, how are we deciding these fair market valuations now?
Basically, how we do that is we take every coach's salary, that's been reported, okay, and we correlate that with the career grade that is most like in that same tier. So a guy who is the top 77th percentile in his rating should get the 77th percentile in salary as well. See that correlation. So you're actually getting paid for performance instead of paid for just a name and your reputation. That's how we do fair market value as far as coaches. It's actually you're getting what you're paying for in that way as far as performance on the field. Now that guys who have never coached in Power 5 jump from G5, you may get a little bit sideways with that. But for the most part, it's been a pretty good tool that athletic directors have really enjoyed using in the past 2 or 3 years since we developed it.
That's crazy. So if somebody comes in and all of a sudden, the next coordinator is making $3 million, that changes the whole what the 75th percentile even is. So
exactly,
is that what ends up driving the market? Is it the top guys?
It is. It's a lot like free agency. Huh. Your wide receiver X gets this much. Well, wide receiver Y is like, I'm just as good or better than that guy. I need to be up here.
Yeah, listen, I'm in the 25th percentile, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
25% of 4 million is
higher.
That's right.
Damn. What about? Sorry, I'm like jumping all over, but I know we're getting close to the end. Our dear friend Scott Frost back to Central Florida. How do you think that'll do?
There's some situations that it's just not a good fit. And if you have told me before all that happened, that he was going, like, I had my reservations about Scott before he was hired. Okay. Just because he had done things at UCF that I wasn't for sure were replicable, at Nebraska. I wasn't for sure if he was ready for that type of job.
Politically well spoken.
Yeah. So That was what we were nervous for when he came here. He gets back to Central Florida. Maybe he's in the in the size of pond he's more comfortable with. So he's still a great play caller. I mean, Scott is actually in our system is great as a higher play caller than Dana is slightly. So
yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, so he's a very, very good offensive play caller. Now his defensive coordinator when he hired that guy, I was just like, Scott, what are you doing?
I didn't see it.
Dude, that was a crazy first move. As
I was like, oh, that was bold. That was real bold.
Yeah, USC D coordinator.
Oh, that's right.
What's his name? Freaking
Alex Grinch.
Yes, Grinch. God, he's gotten run out of town everywhere.
I was like, Scott, what are you doing?
Damaged goods. He's like, I'll take it.
So I don't know how that's going to work. Grinch has never done anything anywhere very well. So we'll see how that goes. His rest of his staff, Brandon Harris, he hired. That's okay. It's not great. I love Sean Beckton. I loved him here. I still think he's an excellent coach. We'll just see how all that goes. Pete Alomar, really like him as a special teams coordinator.
Yeah, with Scott, I mean, it is such a strange case because now you have all this data from his time at Nebraska and UCF combined. But for some reason, I think people want to say, well, it worked in UCF in the past. It clearly didn't work here. That data's got to skew his tier down by 1 or 2 notches, I would think.
Well, so an average head coach in our system is 59.8. Scott is 57.1. So he's just barely below average.
Now, this might be going too deep into the numbers. Do you know what he was coming out of UCF before he coached here?
Yeah, he was a 6. Let me look at really just make sure I'm not misspeaking. He was a 64.2.
Okay.
So he was above average. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
He took a hit. So, but I mean, it wasn't massive. He went from 64 to 57. So sure. It wasn't that massive of a swing. So
So if you're gonna I mean, is there a certain tier where you're just like never hire this person again?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have hired Scott as a head coach yet. I think I would have had him be an offensive coordinator somewhere for a while first, just to kind of see how he fits back into the game. That would have been my advice to if UCF's athletic director would have reached out and about that. Is now they may be a different situation because they've actually dealt with him. He's been there. He's had success there before. He may have a roadmap to how to do it at UCF specifically, but. Sure. Say another program like UCF that wasn't UCF would have reached out and said, "Hey, we're thinking about hiring Scott Frost. What do you think?" We would have said, "Maybe as an offensive coordinator, let's pump the brakes for a bit on hiring as a head coach." So,
yeah, I mean, good for him. Honestly, it's it's not like I'm cheering for his demise or anything.
Well, I'm not either at all.
I think it's it's gonna suck if they go to the playoff before us. That's gonna be pretty tough to swallow. That's for sure.
Like Josh Heupel in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, it's all.
I guess my last question that just because you'd mentioned kind of the market valuation and everything, do you think you guys are gonna dabble in starting to get into individual players and their rankings and their this value and this value? I mean, obviously that is all changing incredibly quickly, but your database is mainly coaches now. But
so we have worked with some collectives, the National Collective Agency. It's a group of collectives that all work together. Before the House ruling was really bubbling about there, we were going to work with them being a hub where they sent all their NIL data to us and what a starting quarterback was making or what a starting right guard was making. And that way we could send out anonymously, okay, here's the market value of a starting right guard in the SEC. Okay?
Yeah.
That way it helps them set a price point.
Totally.
But now with how things are, everybody's kind of waiting on the House ruling to kind of decide how they want to structure things going forward. But yeah, we are in that sandbox as well. So we'll see if we get further into that or not.
Wow. Wild times. I mean, it is like it's an unbelievable opportunity for you guys being positioned where you are. Just like unlimited opportunity of, that we got general managers entering the fray. We've got salaries. We've got coaches' contracts, like continuous hysteria. I just feel like there's just never not going to be a need for you guys. It's great business. You're right in the center.
Yeah, it's crazy sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, it's like the emotion gets hyped up and the money's in there, and it's personal because it's people's money. It's boosters' money. It's not just like some foreign company's money. It's like, no, that was my money. I just bought that coach and he stinks. I'd like him out.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's right. That's exactly what it is sometimes. So, or now it's collective doing that. So
all of the above, man. Wow. Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. I mean, shout out to all the Huskies fans for following. We appreciate you guys being members here. Make sure you guys check out the CFB Professor on Twitter. Are you on Facebook? Any other channels?
No, I am not. Just on Twitter. So
you've got a Patreon.
I do have a Patreon. Yep, I do have a Patreon, and I post a lot of our when we get further into the season, I'll start posting. First off, season projections, what the win totals are projected to be according to my model, and then also week by week, I give spread point projections. So
he does it all, folks.
Yeah, sign me up. That sounds like money in the bank.
At CFB _ Professor. All the best picks. Good stuff. Adam, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Go Big Red. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.